My vlog, Thomas Parish. Okay, what's a good intro? Okay, okay, let's try an intro now. My name is Thomas Parish, and this is my vlog for behind the scenes of the directing unit. Let's start off. First part is scene summary. Scene summary. Scene summary. Why did I choose a particular scene? Well, since the beginning of the project, when I first started making our own films, I wanted to do something different, something darker than we were making last year. I sought after doing something darker, which I could make look quite sinister and with a grade in the colour, ultimately landing at the feet of Pulp Fiction after searching through several films that I could sort of remake in a certain style like that. Pulp Fiction is an extremely well-known film in cult genre, and I was interested to see what effect the tone of the film has on the overall outcome, and whether a film so well-known could be manipulated to such a point that it was barely recognisable of its former self. Slightly over-ambitiously, I opted to go for one of the greatest and most frequently quoted scenes of the entire film, the hamburger scene. How Quentin Tarantino does this is a stroke of pure genius dialogue, but I've always felt that the scene itself is a far lot darker than it has you believe. What if we could break it down to a dark, unforgiving room in which Brett, this preppy young kid, way out of his depth, could be isolated and outnumbered? This would really amplify the feeling of fear the audience should be receiving from Brett. To do this shoot, I really wanted to be able to control the light completely. I needed a production studio and a multitude of different types of light, from Red's LED panels to give me the most flexibility and control over how the scene looked. I also wanted the actors to have the most freedom in the set, to be slightly free in their choice in improv, or going slightly off script if they wanted to. Tarantino's dialogue, I find, really inspires people and really gets them motivated to work. Ultimately, this failed to work how I anticipated, and the scene changed, but I kept the majority of the theme the same. Script analysis. What is the spine of the sequence, and when bouts do the key moments and beats take place? So, moving from the famous hamburger scene I mentioned earlier, after a shambles of a shoot, I moved to reshoot my scene, taking lessons I'd learned from my initial venture into production. I elected to go with the scene immediately prior, partly because of the easiest scene, it's a simple location and two character dialogue focus, but also because eventually I wanted to go back to the hamburger scene and reshoot it to learn lessons from this unit and go back in January or February and actually make a decent job of it. However, going back to the corridor scene, it is a really interesting script to work with. It shows the viewer a deeper look into the minds of both Vincent Vega and Jules Winfield, as well as their current relationship. The scene is carried by its dialogue, which is not only interesting to listen to, as the two recount tales of pastiche the elusive Marcellus Wallace, but the power in the scene changes hands several times, and so you move the camera to back the character in charge. Jules begins the majority of power in the scene, which slowly drifts towards Vincent as he remains calmer during the heated discussion, but not only does it show that Jules is erratic and unreliable in his anger outbursts, but also begins to leak exposition about his failing relationship with Marcellus Wallace, and his urge to leave the business they are in, which is later explored in the film. To emphasize the power change in the scene, the cast stop, push, or otherwise physically manipulate the other character to demonstrate who is currently leading the scene. However, as we move out of the stairwell, we can clearly see that Jules regains composure as Vincent, the one in trouble, not only because of his immediate date with Mrs. Wallace, but the outburst at the end providing us with humour, also bringing back the power to Jules, who then proceeds to carry it out for the next scene, the hamburger scene with Brett. I think the script is beautifully written as it packs in so much detail into one relatively short conversation. It establishes several characters that occur later in the film and begins to get the audience side of the gangster duo. Decisions and logistics. Describe how your technical and creative choices came to screen. Choosing to do the slightly shorter corridor scene came with several benefits, such as less actors, less interactive props, such as guns, but it also had drawbacks. A major issue for me was moving around the location. Ideally, I wanted to shoot the scene in a derelict apartment stairwell, old wooden floorboards, peeling wallpaper, somewhere believable you could stage a drug hard front, but the budget did come in to be a problem, and I settled on shooting in a local mate's apartment stairwell. It was, Okay, it had the pros of being well lit, but it was quite tight, a lot smaller than I imagined. Getting the actors to maintain a decent, realistic walking pace with the crew moving in front became a technical problem. We actually just couldn't move up the staircase backwards fast enough with all the camera equipment to compensate for the actors who were supposed to be hitting their marks as they run through the script. So a bit of a problem there, but to enable the filming to go ahead, I decided to creatively implement like a rhythmic pause in the actors' pacing as they climb the staircase. The idea was to journey up the steps at a regular pace, maybe 1-2 seconds behind at most, but each stairwell they landed on would be about 2 to 3 seconds plus pause, depending on how the flow of the dialogue went. This then sort of like allowed us to get the camera and the set and the boom pole ahead of the actors without being in shot, and it also gave me a chance to talk through the actors how they think Jules and Vincent were moving around the location. I really enjoyed this. I felt the actors really got into their roles and were coming up with some good ideas about how to keep the pace of the scene. I love shooting this film as the entire 4.5 minutes is done entirely on Flycam, which not only allows us to get some beautifully long shots, but also gives the film a dynamic and fluid feel, something I really think helps pique the interest in what is basically a 9% dialogue piece, sorry. Oh, casting and working actors. So, casting and working with actors. The project's been a major rollercoaster ride for me, one of the biggest struggles I had to with film. One of the biggest struggles I've had with film since starting at Rave was casting and working with actors, this reincarnation of Pulp Fiction. I was so excited to get this project underway. Once I decided on what scene I wanted to do, I began putting together a schedule for production on the 14th of October. I put up listings for actors on Casting Call Pro. I hadn't actually used Casting Call Pro before, and took what I thought would be a necessary precaution by giving myself a month and a bit to find the right 5 actors which would fit the roles of Jules, Vincent, Brad, Roger and Marvin. Suffice to say, I was actually overwhelmed with the response I received. However, when it came down to it, most of the actors who seemed ideal for the part, or the ones I wanted to get in, had received other paid jobs when I needed them for my shoot. That was a bit of an issue. I did learn 2 big lessons here. One is that actors are easy to come by as hard to go. I mean, so many applications. But the bigger one is the second, is the best quality actors will go for the paid work. So you sort of have to go through and actually take a detailed look into seeing who's actually going to turn up, who's reliable. And that's something I learned from that first shoot. I knew coming back for the reshoot and recast how to use the system for the best results. Yeah. For the first shoot though, by the end of the 34 days the job had been live, I had just over 72 applications. Despite this, and all my preparation, booking a studio and several £1,000s of equipment, it did go horribly wrong, and that's mainly due to the actors. 2 didn't turn up out of the 5-man crew, and then the lead didn't know hardly any of his lines. He had about 2 pages of the 6-7 page script memorized. It was a complete shambles, but the clock was ticking and the pressure was on to get the next film underway, so I set about launching up a new job for an easier scene with fewer actors, and I wanted these actors I could actually work with. I wanted to create something that even after all this I would be happy with. So I came across Towers and Max, these 2 guys that just sort of approached me, and I decided I would get to know them, who they are, what's their background, and ultimately what they want out of this film. To do this, I requested we make some coffee, run through some lines, talk about the scene. I mean, I am so happy I did this. I got to find out that Towers was a professional Greek actor looking to build a portfolio of work to get a London agent. This was great for me, as I was looking for someone with a strong European British accent to play Jules, to take the Pulp Fiction away, really? To take Pulp Fiction away from the black American comedy that we know and rein it into the likes of an Anglo-European crime film, like such as in Bruges. I also wanted I also got to talk to Max. He was shooting with me on the side of a major job we had with Sky and Canary Wharf. He was filming some new CSI drama for launch next year, but he was also looking to play out one of his favourite all-time characters with Vega. We spoke over the lines, and he came to the agreement about him blending Tarantino's version with a Jason Statham type role. This would tie in the East End London crime vibe I was going for, as well as give Max a rough and hard-hitting hitman to play as. He was very excited about that, and the energy he had was something I really wanted to work with. especially considering the lackluster results of the first shoot's actors. getting to know both the actors on good terms meant they were more happy to shoot. More than happy to shoot when we ran over time, and they're both really chilled out and let me wrap up my own time, even when a couple of hours over. In fact, we got on so well that we penciled in another shoot in January. My continuation of the scene we shot, this was great for me, so I'm so glad I found some actors that I can really get involved with, and they're really happy to keep going and going and going and still enjoy the whole day afterwards. Reflecting on how the shoot went, what went well, what could have been improved. Shooting for the second time is incredibly stressful. I know that much. The entire scene revolved around the actors being able to remember large chunks of dialogue, as well as hit their marks to maintain pace and provide a compelling and realistic performance. Whilst the crew and I manoeuvre around them, I knew that if the shoot went badly, that this was it, and the pressure of getting that right was insane on this day. I was a little bit wrecked. I think that, but had I planned better, I could have improved the setting. That's the thing I was most unhappy with, the location and lighting of the shoot. I tried to get a better place which represented the tone of the scene better, but my limited budget just didn't stretch far enough for use of a dilapidated building. And lighting the scene with external sources became next to impossible. We just couldn't get any redheads in place so they wouldn't be seen, and even mounting LED panels on top of the camera itself had just made an already heavy fly cam that much harder to work with. And, the crew were struggling. Having said that, I'm really impressed with how the crew managed to pull off everything asked of them. Climbing 4 flights of stairs backwards, holding heavy and unwieldy equipment is an exceptional feat in itself, let alone keep the 2 actors constantly in frame as they repeatedly stopped and changed pace. This, I think, partly comes down to my excellent planning and constant tweaks to the scene. I moved the actors around to allow the crew to gain those most crucial steps ahead, which in turn allowed the crew to shoot some amazing shots which emphasised the power of struggle between the actors directly correlating to the dialogue. The film flows beautifully and staggeringly long shots are well worth the effort. Reflecting back on both shoots, I have to say that out of all my projects so far, this has been the most stressful, testing and infuriating one, but it's also been by far my favourite. One of the reasons I got into doing film was to be in a career in which I had no idea what the next day would bring. I want to work somewhere unpredictable, as far from routine as I can, and the thought of being stuck in an office is driving me crazy. But I love film. I love this project. It's like a crazy roller coaster. One moment you're pulling your hair out of over actors and locations, and the next you're flying high after a long, successful shoot, and then you just get to the edit room and you collapse again, and you're like, crazy. But in the end, when it all comes together, that feeling is just so like anything else. It's amazing, and I love every minute of it. Yeah, I'm guessing that's that.